Okay, welcome to another episode of the Sledder Cast podcast. I'm Trevor Erickson here, one of the hosts of the program, and we're lucky today. We've got the Ibexx crew here with us. We have Michael,
William.
William, and Alex.
Alex, yeah.
Yep, and we brought these guys in. So I told these guys I love watching and listening to podcasts and anything to do with snowmobiling. I love to just turn it on and learn and just be involved with the industry. And I sat there and watched the episode you guys did with Snow West about a month ago or so, and it was very enlightening to me. I mean, you guys, a lot of that stuff went over my head, and I kind of explained to you guys before, this is probably going to be a little bit different of an episode because I just didn't grow up, with a wrench in my hand and underneath the hood of a machine. I rode the machines, but if that thing broke, I was in trouble. I didn't know how to fix it. One of my biggest mistakes, or not mistakes, but things I wish I would have done differently is when I was in college up here, there was a small engine class, and it was like an elective, and I was like, I should, I'm like on four-wheelers and dirt bikes and so I should probably just have a basic knowledge of what's going on here with these engines. So I enroll into that class. It was super early in the morning. The professor had us come into a shop, and he just had tables of small engines out on the table. And the first exam type thing was we had a paper with numbers, and each one of those engines had a number on it. And it was like, hey, walk through the tables and tell me what engine or what type of engine this is. Okay. I looked at that paper. I looked at the tables. I put the paper down and I walked right out of that shop. I wish I would have just stayed in there and just, fought my way through that, but I didn't. And so I'm paying the price now, but that's why we brought you guys in. Okay. So we're going to talk about obviously what Ibexx does, a little bit about your company in general, and then more on the educational side, because I'm gonna be asking questions that hopefully someone else, maybe there's only one other person out there, but this is for you, it's for him or her, but just kind of dial into more of the educational side of how clutching and how power to ground works with snowmobiles and how to just enhance the performance of a snowmobile. So let's start off. I want to get into kind of the nitty gritty of that stuff, but let's dive into Ibexx. Okay, so we've got a father and two sons here sitting here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about just the beginnings of Ibexx, where the idea came from, what you guys were doing that transitioned over into starting the company, because you guys, I think, are probably relatively new for the industry. 2016 or 17?
End of 2016.
End of 2016 when Ibexx officially began. But I mean, you guys were doing cool stuff in the space or in adjacent spaces leading up to that point. So give me that founder's story. How did this all start?
Well, Dad started doing stuff in, I would say probably mid 80s, late 80s to early 90s on snowmobile stuff, and that's where his passion kicked up. I wasn't overly interested in mechanics and stuff like that at that point. So William worked a lot with him on porting and piping sleds. Dad, the industry may not know, a lot of people know, but Olive and Performance. He's basically, somebody that's done clutching in their life, especially for where we come from. They worked for him or know about him or they've read his book or whatever. He's the guy that kind of pioneered everything. And so Dad did a lot of work with him. And then, obviously with Snow West, they started Bully Dog in 98. So that kind of went by the wayside a little bit. William and I, our passion for sledding just grew year over year over year. And we watched, obviously, big name guys like Chris Brandt. Funnily enough, Chris Brandt was Bully Dog was one of his very first sponsors before he got big.
Oh, wow.
And in 2011 and 2012, there was new sort of sleds coming out. I had just gotten out of high school, and
2012.
2012. Well, I got out in 2009.
You're
but
just a young. Are you younger?
No, I'm older.
What year did you graduate?
06.
06. Got some young bucks over here. Sheesh.
Yeah. So we fake it till we make it. But anyway,
Love it.
no. And in 12, Arctic Cat came out with their new chassis. Polaris came out with the Pro or the Pro in 11, and then Ski-Doo had the
XM.
the XM, and then they
13.
went to So we bought all 3 sleds, and Bully Dog was going to start tuning them, start doing power sport stuff. So we kind of headed up that, and Silver Turbos, who the industry knows pretty well, came to us, wanted to do ECM downloading. He saw the future going that way because you have a lot more control, you know what's going on, all that stuff. So he did that and gave us a turbo kit to tune. And William got this really stupid, cool idea to try this weight because we'd kind of just wondered in the industry, the 10 series profile that Polaris developed is a fantastic profile, but it was developed, on older sleds. And all we had done was gotten more weight, stiffer springs, all that stuff. So we got this crazy idea to try and curve in the weight. So we started looking at the clutching from a scientific, geometry level and see if we could make something different. And so it all started in 2013, 14.
Okay.
And he cut a set of weights, and it's been refined a ton since then. But we could come out of the hole on a turboed sled, an old turboed sled, without the bypasses. We could come out of the hole with a stock sled. It gave the stock sled, that bottom end that everybody has been crying for the past 20 years. And so then they ended up selling the business in 14. So there was a little bit of a weird transition thing. And then in 15, I quit, and then in 16 he quit, and he wanted to start a clutching business, and I knew about as much about clutching as probably you do, or did. It just didn't make any sense. I'm like, there's a belt, cool, let's go ride,
There, yep.
So that's kind of the way that it started from my point of view. I don't know if he has or Dad has a different one. They probably had a little bit more stress than I did. I was just like, whoa.
Yeah. So you're more on the marketing, sales, operation side of Ibexx.
Yep.
William is the engineer of the product, right?
Yeah, the way that I do it is that I'm the looks of the business, and he's the brains, and we're kind of screwed on both aspects of it.
Hey, but it's good that you each have your own.
Yeah, we're definitely different on that
Different
side.
on that side, right?
Yeah, he was salutatorian in his class, and I was number 26 out of 50. So,
26 out of 50.
Yeah, I didn't even break the top 50%. Can you believe that?
You just barely missed it, but
yeah.
But that would have been
Aberdeen. The business is out of American Falls.
Falls, yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So we're headquartered in Rexburg, Idaho, and you guys are in Aberdeen or American Fork. American Falls, and it's about an hour,
20 and a half.
Yeah, just south of us. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, small town, 1,800 people in Aberdeen, and there's
5,000 in
5,000 in American Falls. So.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. And so when does Dad come into the picture here? Because you guys are kind of over here scheming some things. And then
I would say where he comes in a lot is the marketing side. We just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
We love interaction with people. We can talk your ear off for days, as everybody can probably see. But trying to get the word out of who we are and what we do is kind of the biggest difficulty that I think William and I never saw that part at Bully Dog, because we went through. He worked in engineering, he worked in IT, I worked in the tech department in QA, and so it's we've been around kind of how the business had run, but not the sales and marketing side of stuff. We never ventured into that. So I think his biggest asset to us was his experience in the
been there,
marketing.
done that before, and seen a company grow like that.
Right.
And so, define your marketing. Are you old school marketing, or or I mean, are you keeping up with all the kids these days, running with them?
I don't do social media.
No social media.
Don't like any of that stuff.
Okay.
But I love. So I think that kids would come to me at Bully Dog. What would you go to school for? I'd go to school for marketing. But now I'm not sure I would go to school for marketing, because everybody that goes to school for marketing gets put in the same box. And it might be really good stuff, but you and I as customers, about the 32nd thousandth time we've seen the same type of ad, we get real tired of it and we shut off. So my thing with marketing is to always look for what will stand out in the crowd. Did lots of things like at Heydays. We were the first person. They had these rusty water tanks driving around Heydays. And I called and asked them, I said, would you mind if I wrapped your truck? I said, I'll put a wrap on there so the truck looks nice for you. And put Bully Dog on the truck, and the whole time they're driving trucks up and down the aisles.
Yeah.
Bully Dog. So I like to think of ways that are outside the box to do it. We gave T-shirts away at SEMA once. Lots of people went to the SEMA board and tried to stop us during the thing. There was no rule against having T-shirts, but instead of spending $20,000, well, there's not. No, people can still do it. They just, I don't know. I think people just don't know how to do something sometimes. But we bought $20,000 worth of T-shirts, which is fairly cheap for SEMA. And we would give everybody a T-shirt as long as they would put it on before they left the booth.
Yeah.
And if they left it on, we had people running around SEMA and would give them a little ticket, and they could come back and win $100 for the day. They kept their shirt on. It was a sea of red.
Yeah. That's
so we had, I don't know, 10,000 T-shirts
running around advertising for you guys.
Yeah, that was probably the most powerful marketing that's ever been done.
Yeah.
Because everybody, and then the next couple of years, people would always come up, you have T-shirts, we want T-shirts. I think we did it twice, but yeah, I like to think outside the box.
Yeah.
In marketing, I enjoy watching for the gaps. So
that's needed. I mean, a lot of that is that old school marketing, but the old school stuff is what's getting forgotten these days, and that stuff still works, right? And I think the magic is when you can sprinkle in that old school stuff, but then also sprinkle in the old school stuff with some of the new school stuff. And you guys are, I mean, shoot, this is at least the second podcast you guys have been on, right? Like, you guys are out there doing new things and, building and growing the business. So Dad comes in with the marketing side, kind of that been there, done that before, leadership for the company. At the end of 2016 happens. Did you guys launch into snow, or were you guys first into the dirt, the side by side?
The snow stuff was our first attack. Like Alex said, we started with some basic snowmobile clutching before we even started the business, and we thought that at that point the dirt stuff from 16 on has grown like crazy. But before that, we personally weren't even in the dirt scene much. So it wasn't a market we even knew.
Yep. Okay. So started with the snowmobiling side. What you guys, so walk me through the end of 2016 to now, and what has changed about Ibexx. I mean, are you guys still, operating in the same facility? Is it just the three of you guys running the show? Walk me through kind of what that transition now looks like to today, towards the end of 2023.
So facility's the same. We did switch and then switched back. We have 5-6 employees now, helping out with shipping and tech support and marketing and sales as well. We've shifted kind of from snow, and now we're probably close to 50-50 snow and dirt.
Really?
So
okay,
the dirt has exploded for sure, which we we did see it real quick early on. I mean, we didn't just do snow for probably more than a year. I think we were in the dirt by 17.
Okay.
And so that kind of grew. We grew, in particular, the Can-Am X3 came out in 17, and it was kind of, we hit that. We started working into it at the same time this new completely extravagant buggy came out. I mean, it changed the industry. And now, there's a lot of amazing buggies out there, but at that point it was kind of like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And we hit that right at the right time so that we grew with it.
Yep. Right place, right time. Sounds like for that vein.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about knowing what you guys know now? Okay, so you guys are 3 and 3, so 6 years into Ibexx. Is there anything you guys would have done differently if you were to start it over again right now? Start the company.
Probably 100% of it.
Our research and development cabinet would probably be a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Because we know what we know now. I mean, when we came into the industry in 17, we knew everything. And now we know more than we knew then.
Yep.
But less than we know. CVT stuff is, some people call it a black magic. It's understanding just the profile stuff and how the belts work and stuff. I mean, Ian's clutching book was a huge help to all of us. And then, learning from other people in the industry. I mean, we don't know everything.
Yeah.
Our clutch kits work phenomenal. But there's always something more to learn. This turbo that these guys just came out with that we're now using on our catalyst kit, I mean, it has completely redefined the way turbochargers work. I would argue, I argued with the guy that sold me it for a year. I was like, there's no way, dude. There's no way it's that much better. And so, that's the thing with clutching too. There is so much more that we haven't discovered, mankind itself, people in our industry, us, so we're always trying to keep moving forward, developing, different stuff, learning different things. Like our R&D cabinet is bigger than our production cabinet because we have failed so many different times trying something new to see what happens. And I'm sure there's other people that can say the same thing. So,
yeah, I mean, the quicker you're able to fail, the quicker you get to the solution. The more attempts and shots you take at that, you just get more reps.
Yeah.
So
when you fail, you learn.
Yep.
We know 100 different ways not to do it.
Therefore, you don't really fail. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell them a little bit about what you started with and the different sticks you've picked up and where you are today.
So our initial setup we did was just clutch weights. Primary clutch weights. Yeah, primary. They're the little arms that go into
in today's terms, right? So it would be similar to a stage 1 kit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so the stage 1 kit in most markets is a set of the little flyweights and generally a primary spring. Sometimes they do a secondary spring with it. That's kind of where we started. We basically only worked with the primary itself initially. And what we found was, and maybe we'll go into a little bit more detail later, but from an overview, what we found was the changes we were making, although made improvements, they had some very bad backlash, I guess, side effects. And so it took a little while to figure out what that was and why we were having this problem. We met with a company or a fellow out of Minnesota. He was another kind of clutching pioneer type guy. He's in his 90s now.
Still kicking.
Still kicking as far as we know. I haven't talked to him for a few years.
Good for him.
But he was focused on the secondary. And so we kind of went out there and he gave us the ropes and explained how the secondaries worked. And that's when we started kind of like light bulbs popping on that, no, this is... our issues are related to what's going on in the secondary. So then we started messing with the secondary, and the Can-Am X3 really taught us a lot. because there was quite a lot of things in it that were different than the snowmobiles that brought out and exposed these problems a little more obviously, which was good. We ended up developing, and some of it I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's proprietary, but we ended up developing a new way to cut helixes, and we have a very proprietary helix. And largely what's out there works fine with the primary stuff that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But because we do the primary so different, we had to develop something in the secondary to match it. And it took a while to figure that out. Now we kind of dropped the line of stage ones because of the nature of the side effects. And we provide full packages in secondary, which most of the industry knows as a stage 2.
Yeah. So let me chime in here. Explain to the snowmobiler who doesn't understand. They've heard the primary and secondary clutch, but what's the key role of the primary and what's the key role of the secondary clutch? And we should shout out. You've got your own YouTube channel,
Yes.
right? And if so, we're gonna talk about some of these. I guess you want to call it educational deep dive or dives into some of these terminologies, but you've got your own YouTube channel where you actually go into further details on some of the clutching and
Yeah, it's called My Clutching Guy.
so My Clutching Guy on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to just nerd out on clutching, that's the resource
Yeah.
to head over to. Cool. So primary and secondary, explain to us what the key role is of each of those.
Okay. Let me know if I get too deep.
I will.
So the basic overview to start with, the word primary and the word secondary, is the primary is the pulley that is on the engine. It's bolted to the engine.
Drive.
And it's also known as the drive pulley.
Okay.
Which I think after what we've learned, I like the word drive better than primary because primary gives it the aspect that it's the smarts behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. The secondary or the driven pulley is the one that is connected to transmission on a UTV or what is called the jack shaft on the snowmobile. It is driven by the belt, and the drive is by the engine, essentially. The CVTs in general, it works the same as the best way. Alex has actually been good at explaining it, but if you got a 10-speed bicycle,
Yep.
and you look at the front, and you got three different size sprockets usually in the front, and however many in the back, depending on your gears, 10 or 20 or whatever gears you've got. Every time you shift one of those gears, the sprocket size changes, and that's what gives you your gear ratio. Your drive clutch, to go faster, needs to get the sprocket size needs to get bigger.
Okay.
Your pedals.
Your pedals.
Your front ones go bigger.
Yep.
And your back ones go smaller.
And your back ones go smaller. And so because of the nature of that working, what a CVT does is makes the front one bigger and the back one smaller at the exact same time, so you can keep the same length. You know, your bicycle, they've got that goofy set of sprockets that has a little spring on it that keeps the length of the chain tight. Well, that's because you're only shifting one side at a time. On a CVT, both sides shift exactly the same time, so your belt kind of does this. The concept of it continuously variable is it's moving 100% of the time. So a lot of people think, oh, when I hit 8,000 RPM, that's my clutch is shifted out. No, it's not. No, that's when your clutching setup is matching your horsepower input and your load output. Well, load input really from the backside. So you don't reach full. I mean, a lot of people call it shift out RPM. I find that kind of somewhat of a poor explanation because, at least in my head, that means it's closed and it's done. It's not. That's the RPM that you're clutched for. What I consider shift out is when the clutches are fully closed, and that's the fastest you can go with the size of pulleys and the gear ratio and the tires or track sizes, all of the numbers together. That is the fastest you can go at a certain RPM. So,
And that's the field that you guys play in.
That's one of a few fields that we play.
That would be probably the least amount that we play in because of the mountain segment that we come from.
Mm-hmm.
We play with it depends on your definition of shift out.
Yeah.
But we play with, we play like a mountain sled. I mean, the boost and the Ski-Doo Turbo, they've all changed how much track speed you can run now. But back before that stuff, you're building at 8,000 feet. We're building anywhere from 130 to 160 horse most of the time. So your average track speed was probably wide open, would be about 35 to 45 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's the segment that we play with is 0 to 50, because the boost and stuff now will pull 55 mile an hour on, and I'm talking like 3 feet of powder straight up the hill, nothing changing. You didn't get a 100-mile run towards the hill where you can hit it at 75 miles an hour.
Right out of the gate.
So I think that would be the least amount of the part that we probably play with would be your very, very top speed, which is, I think, what he was talking about.
Yeah. Cool. So before we jumped into the primary and secondary, we were kind of going into a direction where, as far as Ibexx, the company, what excites you guys the most about the future? So we talked about kind of the transition you guys have had, the trial and error, what you guys have picked up and learned along the way. Now, looking from 2023 into the future, what excites you guys the most about what you've got cooking, the industry in general?
Can I interject back to the clutch just for 1 second?
Absolutely.
I think they missed one point. I think that what they have concentrated on is getting the clutches to transition shift points faster than any other person in the market.
There you go.
So if you go from hard pack to soft snow, if you go from soft snow to hard pack, you will gain links on other sleds or other setups very quickly because their stuff transitions the shift quicker than any other setup.
Okay.
That has to do with the shift racing that he was talking about. So we kind of got off track.
That's why he's the marketing guy, right?
Right, exactly. Tries to make it sound all good.
No, and the other thing in that, our biggest focus and our biggest advantage, we always focus on the I'm going to use somewhat of a technical term, horsepower under the curve.
Okay. Never heard that before.
So it's if you go put an engine on a dyno, just straight up an engine, your engine produces horsepower in a curve. Okay.
Seen that on a dyno before.
Me?
Dyno sheet.
I've never seen a dyno sheet before.
All right.
Oh, okay.
All
right.
So this is your engine does not. I mean, if you have a 400 horsepower engine, that's 400 horsepower at a given RPM. Let's say it's 8,000 because we're working in snowmobiles. That would be a really powerful one, but it exists. That's at 8,000 RPM. But at 3,000 RPM, that engine doesn't make 400 horsepower.
Yep.
It only makes 160. Mm-hmm. So you have this curve. Now, when you take and add clutching to it, that curve changes. Mm-hmm. Same thing. You don't have 100% of that horsepower at 0 miles an hour. Your clutching will come in and create its own curve. Now, the problem is sometimes that curve doesn't match the engine. Mm. Now, you can't make more horsepower than your engine's making. But what we focus on is generating or is grabbing that horsepower as early as possible and holding it as long as possible. So a lot of our competitors' horsepower dyno charts will look like a mountaintop.
Yep.
Ours look like a plateau. So our peak output isn't always more. We're usually within 2 or 3 horsepower because they're hitting peak. The engine's producing that much power at the peak. You're probably not. You can shift it a little bit, but you're not going to make a massive amount more. But in between,
you're holding that.
We're holding it.
So you just explained that really good. Okay. Because I was struggling a little bit, and that last little section that you just explained just.
So that's the horsepower under the curve that you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
that was great. Underneath there, there's way more horsepower in the average.
It's underneath the very peak horsepower. We and CVTs. That's the beautiful thing about CVTs, is they are designed to hold peak power.
Yep.
As long as possible. And that's peak power of the engine. If the engine's got, 400 horse here and 300 here and 200 here, you're not going to make 400 horse here.
Yep.
You're going to make 200 there, 300 here, and 400 here. So what we try to do is get it to peak power at that RPM as quick as possible. And what we've come to, because there's a lot of guys, especially with the new UTV that just came out, they were like, oh, this dual clutch transmission is just going to kill a belt. Well, there's enough evidence out there now that it's not exactly like that, due to the fact that with a CVT, you start out in such a low range gear because obviously it's the tiniest sprocket in the front and the biggest one in the back. And so they come out of the hole really hard. And that's what we try to focus on, especially because the whole snowmobile industry, especially mountains, have transitions towards tree riding. In his generation, it was the most horsepower and shoot straight up a hill. And
Scare
I think our generation doesn't have cojones to do that because we like the trees. We like the trees. So ours is...
We also like the views.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the views
Exactly.
are a little bit different. Yeah.
So keep getting the horsepower
more
as fast as we can, getting to peak horsepower of that motor at every given RPM is what we focus on.
Yeah.
So we might run 2 horsepower under our competitors or 2 horsepower over, but we're going to hold it longer.
Enjoying the benefits of that horsepower for a much longer time rather than just getting a little bit more at a very small time.
Yeah. So this curve for when you're talking track speed essentially is on an engine dyno, you're looking at it versus RPM, so your engine RPM. On a track or wheel dyno, generally you're looking at it as speed, vehicle speed, when you're working with a CVT. And the reason for that is a CVT's goal is to get it to peak horsepower, like he said. So let's use 8,000 as we referenced before, as quickly as possible. Well, a lot of times, especially when you get in the turbo world, you'll find them really sluggish. They don't reach that 8,000 until they're doing, say, 25 miles an hour. Whereas we will hit 8,000 at 10, and then we will hold it. And then a lot of times you'll see RPM fall off or gain. And gaining RPM, a lot of people think more RPM better. No,
not always.
Not always. You have to the piping and the engine itself has to be developed to run that RPM, or it doesn't make more power.
Yeah.
So we want to hold that as flat as possible for every given speed. And most people don't realize it. They'll look at it, and you'll look at a competitors, and they'll make peak horsepower at 70 miles an hour. That's cool. How often are you at 70?
Yeah. Not so, especially when you're riding mountains, right?
Mountains.
Never.
If you are, you have a fast sled.
Yeah.
You have a fast sled.
So one of the other things that I think that they've done with their clutching kit that is important to mention is you start with the horsepower dyno of the engine. Now we understand the dynamics of the engine, and now you can load the clutch according to what that horsepower number is. Then, when they have these transitions that we spoke about earlier of shifting, peak horsepower is generally, not always, but generally is related to a higher RPM than peak torque. So with the clutching, you want to stay up there close to that peak horsepower, and when you go into a heavier load like deep snow or a transition into a steep hill, you don't want to fall under peak torque, or all of a sudden you really lose whatever advantage your engine has over the buddy you're trying to beat right there.
Yep.
So you want to stay in between because your torque number is always a lower RPM than your horsepower. So you want to come up, you want to run right in between them where, if you lose a little bit of RPM, and that's what we focus on is our back shift, is that when you hit like, buddy goes across the hill like that, you got to jump a trench. When you hit down hard, your track gets extra load.
Yep.
We focused with our helix learning about how, secondaries work is we focused on our helix to backshift faster, and so it'll hold. We drop maybe
Get into
100.
that lower gear quick.
Yeah,
Yep.
we got it. It needs to go to lower gear and then it'll come back up, right? Whereas a lot of what I've watched videos and stuff, we'll see guys pull RPM down 200-300 RPM, and yeah, they don't really pull below the torque, but they lose a lot of horsepower, if you will. They lose a lot of torque by dropping, way down that far. And so we focused on trying to make it so that you don't really lose RPM.
Yeah.
So that's kind of,
And one of the things we've noticed more recently, especially, like I say, I keep referencing turbos because turbos have a very bizarre power characteristics. You have no power, and then you've got all the power. So you have a really strange power characteristic you have to work with. And we're using profile to attack that. That's the shape of the weight. I've noticed a lot of our competitors are purposely over revving the engine to make up for a lack of profile. And you'll see, you can even hear it sometimes. They're climbing a hill, and pop, pop, pop. You can hear them whacking a rev limiter because they're trying to keep the tree characteristics as good as possible, and they're massively sacrificing the hill climb characteristics with the technology that we use. We call it advanced profile technology, both in the helix and the primary. We focus on developing the shape of the weight to handle both situations.
Yeah. What's the role of the helix?
So,
because the helix is on the secondary.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen very, like, I haven't played with a lot of them, but we've had some on our snowmobiles, and they've got different profiles that I've seen. So what's the helix's job there?
So
Go ahead.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, exactly. There you
Mike,
go.
I'm asking for Michael.
So as I mentioned earlier, I struggle with the primary secondary, although I use it all the time, because actually the secondary or the driven is the brains.
It's the boss.
It's the boss. He's the one in there going, this is what I want.
Yep.
And deep inside that is the helix. And the helix is really the mini computer of the situation.
Okay.
What it's doing is, best way I can explain that is take a torque wrench, and when you push on, say you got to tighten it 100 foot-pounds. You got to tighten a bolt. So you're twisting on this torque wrench, and you get up close to 100. If you have a short torque wrench like this, it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of work to try to twist that. Get it longer, it's a lot easier, but it takes longer to turn. If you're trying to go 90 degrees with this, little short one, big old long one takes longer. So you have both aspects that you have to deal with. What we do is adjust the angle of the helix. Now, if you make it shallower, is what the industry standard is, you make a shallower helix, it's like lengthening that out. You get way more sensitivity. It recognizes the changes of the ground, from soft snow to hard snow. It recognizes
the feedback from the track.
Yeah, feedback from the track. Yep. It recognizes that way better than a steep helix, which would be more like a short one. The problem is it takes longer to move because it has a longer track to move. It's got more distance to move. So you have to balance those two things to try to find because otherwise you would just go as shallow as you can because it's going to be more sensitive, but you can't do that. Now, what we've found out is a combination of we do use shallower helixes than most because it's kind of the equal and opposite in the primary. We have the flyweights. Because we've been able to develop flyweights that are way lighter, everything can move faster. So we can find a balance of the whole system at a shallower angle than what your conventional setup has to be steeper because of the extra weight to be able to move at a reasonable rate. So in the primary, we use the same torque concept.
Yep.
It's hard to show. I wish I'd have brought some props, but your weight, you've got your bolt that goes through a weight, and that weight has an arm and a curve to it. Well, like I had mentioned earlier, your clutches are always shifting, but the faster you go, there's a roller that it's sitting against. I don't know how to show this here. And when you're in neutral or really low, 10 miles an hour, say you're down here, you're trying to open it. This is what it's trying to do. Its action is moving in this direction to close and clamp the belt. So when you're going like this, you're at almost 90 degrees with it. And anybody can go out and grab a toolbox or a couch or something in the house. If you're pushing directly against the toolbox, it's not that hard to move. Now you get out at, say, 70 miles an hour, you're like this. So now take that toolbox, switch yourself at the wrong angle and try and push on it. Now you suddenly need another person to help you push.
Your force is trying to go.
Because your force is going this way now instead of this way. So what we did is curve that down.
Okay.
So now it comes out a little bit further, and my angle's still 90.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
And so that gives us the torque effect of extending that arm. but we make up for the distance traveled by, because of that extra force, we can drop the weight of that massively. We're what are we, 15 to 20% lighter.
In the helix.
No, in the weight.
The weights. Yeah.
The weights in the primary. We're 15 to 20%, and in an extreme situation like on the Pro R razors, we're actually 50%. We're half the weight.
Holy cow!
And so that starts making, everybody can understand trying to throw something around in a circle. You grab a string and put a golf ball on it and spin it around versus throwing a basketball around. It's harder.
Yep.
And you try and stop it, it's even harder. So if we make that lighter, your rotating mass drops.
Which
those
is
weights
what
can move
the whole industry's
quickly.
about, right?
Yep.
Lighter, the 9R's got a lightweight crank on it. Then you can do carbon fiber, titanium bolts, and, take weight out of the flyweight or out of the flywheel, and then they go and put 78-gram weights in it. And you're going, why
You
not put
defeat it.
56-gram weights in there and pull the same RPM? Because on a clutching, the dumbed-down version for me is weight equals force, and that's force against the belt.
Yep.
Well, when you drop weight, everybody knows if you go and add a pipe to your thing, you got to add weight. Well, we drop weight. So the reason is we don't drop force, because weight equals force. We don't drop force. We just drop weight because we're directing the force in the direction that we want it to go.
Yep.
So there's three things basically that we've come to that come into a weight. You've got your profile, you've got your center of mass, because depending on where your center of mass is on that weight is how you manipulate the shift profile as well, and then your overall mass, 60 grams, 70 grams, 80 grams. And a lot of companies that we see, they just mess with, two of them. They mess with the center of mass and they mess with the overall weight, and they spring it different and all that. Well, we went to the extreme and went down the profile road and go, okay, we're going to curve this profile and try to make it more efficient. So that's where when we say we put more power to the ground, that's what we're doing, is we're making everything more efficient. If you take the 2,300 horse trucks that they have now and you put them on an old Duramax Allison transmission from 2002, you got all this motor power. You're never gonna move the truck because it's just gonna slip. And so with a lighter weight, we're having a more efficient shift. We're wasting less energy. That's what you want to do. An engine, peak engine efficiency is, wasting the least amount of energy that you can, and that's what we've done with making our profile curve. Of course, there's a lot more challenges in curving the profile than we had originally thought, but you live and learn, right? So that's why we're so much different than our competitors, why we don't do a stage one thing, because our flyweights, they work, but you don't get the biggest benefit out of it without doing the secondary.
With just that, yeah. Gotcha.
And we've had the equal question the other way around. Oh, I see your helix works great. Can I use it with mine? Same thing. It won't work.
In fact, that one actually works less than the primary does because of the profile stuff we've created on the helixes.
Yeah.
So your helix takes all the feedback from your track, from your ground, dirt, snow, sand, rocks, and it transfers all that through the transmission. If you can, you follow a line, it goes through the belt drive on a Polaris and up through the jack shaft back into the secondary to the motor. And so it's telling the primary, hey, I'm getting more feedback. My track is starting to pull harder on me. I need you to downshift just a little bit. Hey buddy, we're accelerating, we're getting out of here. Let's upshift. Let's go. Let's put this thing in high gear and go. And it's telling the primary what to do. And the primary is just over there going, I love life.
It's just trying to hold RPM.
This is a lot smarter. These guys are a lot smarter than I was giving them credit for.
Oh, I told you.
Inside the engine, what's going on in there.
We fake it till we make it, I tell you.
You guys have tapped into that zen.
Just before you move on, a couple of things, because you asked, like, where has the business come from? Obviously, we've got clutching is where it's come from. Now, they're into turbochargers, tuning, the new air intake stuff for the Polarises,
which is an absolute must, might I add. The intake on the Polarises, unfortunately, is a good thing for us, bad thing for them, but it doesn't have enough air, and engines, they got to breathe. So we developed a drop. You basically, those two screws, you pull the vent off the side there, and you install ours. Takes about less than 5 minutes, and it gives you about 375% more on the left
Really?
side and about 350% more on the right side. And then in the right side, we've developed an under air thing so that if for some odd reason those get plugged, it will open and start sucking hot engine air, which isn't ideal, but it's better than no air. And then the way we developed it is it follows kind of the body lines of it. And so the snow will naturally just fall off from the movement and the vibration of the sleds, not sticking in the side there. And there's other aspects that come into it, but I went out finally last year, April or March, and there was 4 feet of powder. And so I could really, really put them to the test. And I had a couple of guys out there that were bogging, and I wasn't bogging at all. And you could see my vents. I actually have a video of it. They were, there's snow on them, but there's probably 200% of it still wide open so it can breathe. And that's what you need for the engine. Sorry, but I had to just point that out because those things they're phenomenal.
Yeah, so just more product development.
Right.
Okay.
And ice scratchers, we do a ton with ice scratchers. That was probably the second thing that really
That's one of
took
when you Google Ibexx, that's one of the first popular
It's our most sold product.
searches that it thinks you want. Ibexx ice scratchers.
Yep.
And so what's the difference? So we were looking at just the stock Polaris ones that are
Sweet if you don't back up.
they're extremely average, right? Work if you don't back up. What's your guys' ice scratcher?
They're reversible, so we designed them to be reversible. I mean, in his day, it wasn't a problem because they didn't have reverse.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I can't even dream of having a sled without reverse nowadays. It's kind of a pain.
Yep.
So, I when I get out of the trailer with my boost, I put them down, and I don't put them back up till I get back to the trailer. Reversing, driving forward, however many times you do in a day, they flip backwards and then they flip back forward to go forward, and they're stiffer than a lot of the OEMs that are out there, so they scratch the ice a lot harder. They throw up more snow to keep the track. Your high fax is cooler, your engine temperatures down when you're going. I think there's a couple of guys that have done some testing out there where it'll keep the sled anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees cooler than a factory OEM one. So they've been a huge success for us.
Cool.
And regardless of whose turbocharger you have, they can tune pretty much all of those turbochargers. Several of the other turbocharger companies out there use the Ibexxes, or people aftermarket will come when they have a problem and say, hey, I'm not getting this to run quite right. And so then they put on a Ibexx tune on that, and that helps pretty substantially get other turbos up to speed.
Yeah. Cool. Just jumping back into looking forward. Okay, we've got new product development. You guys are going to all the shows. You had some presence out at Heydays on the snowmobile. On the Ibexx side of things. You're going to Edmonton show. You're going to do the Utah show, the Idaho show.
I didn't make it to the
Colorado,
Denver show.
Yeah, that's going on today.
Yep.
Actually, at the time of our recording.
Yep.
So we've never been to that show either. It's one on our list, but we just haven't ever been, so I don't have a idea of what to report on. And we were planning on doing one at the end of the month up in Montana, but that one got pulled.
Yep.
So anything else? Are you guys, as far as the company, if someone wants to, if there's some athletes out there who want to get involved with you guys, what kind of athlete program do you guys have?
We have an affiliate program and an ambassador program. They just have to email us, and then we'll give them obviously the paper to sign and everything, and stipulations and stuff to be our.
What are you guys looking for if you could just craft like your perfect Sledder athlete ambassador for you guys? What is for Ibexx? What does that look like?
I mean, I think somebody who's going to be. I don't want an athlete that just because we throw a product at them, says our stuff is good. We want people that truly love it, and if they don't love it, they tell us why, so that we can make it lovable.
Yeah.
You know, I want somebody to put our clutch kit on, put our tuning on, put our vents on, put everything on and go, you know, these guys, they care. They want, you know, they want everybody to go out on the deep powder days and enjoy it, because we only get, you know, 2 or 3 of those maybe a year.
Yep.
And even 2 years ago, I don't
Maximize
think
that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
last year or 2 years ago.
2 years ago was
What was
it
powder?
was
I think
was
there was,
horrible.
at least in this year, I think it was like
yeah. I think
Christmas.
Colorado and Wyoming.
the week
got-
after Christmas was like, if you soaked it up then,
Yep.
you got it.
I know. I went riding with my boost to try and get it out of break-in, and I mean, there was guys that rode in December that got their boost, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like I got out in 100 miles." I was like 350 before I got out because I couldn't hold it pinned. Otherwise, I'd go over the top of the mountain at 65 miles an hour. It was like no snow. So, you know, I think we want people that are going to love our product and run it and promote it. Obviously, I mean, we want to get the word out there that we, you know, our clutching is meant for the riders.
Yeah.
You know, so. We've got some ambassadors going this year that I think are going to be, you know, very honest and very truthful about how our product works.
Perfect. And did your program open and close, or is it you just kind of keep it open year round? And
It's kind of open year round.
Yeah, it's kind of what we do as well.
Yeah. I think it's going to be, obviously there'll be more of a winter summer programs, because not everybody that snowmobiles does UTVs and UTVs does snowmobiles, but a lot of guys cross over, but it'll be, you know, kind of like that. We've got, in the UTV world, just coming out of, now we're started to come out of UTV season, we've picked up a couple of racers that are, how old's that kid? Was he like 16 years old with that Razor Turbo that was down there at Invasion?
Oh, yeah.
Hastings?
Yeah, I think that's right.
And he is
16,
a
17, somewhere.
phenomenal driver.
Wow.
But he had, his buggy kept overheating because he would have to stop and wait, like in the drag races and stuff. And they were like, well, we don't really do this, so our motors, you know, but he does short course racing and he's a phenomenal driver. So, you know, transitioning out of that into the snow world is, you know, you transition each season, right? So.
Sure. So let's jump into the lightning round, guys. I kind of gave you a little prep before we started here. The first question, I think you're all going to choose.
You're like really excited about this. I can see your face
you're
light
all-
up on this.
You're all gonna. Well, I mean, I think I have an idea of where you guys are gonna go, but you're all gonna pick different machines, right? So the first question in our lightning round is, you've got a brand new machine, you just picked it up, and you could only do 3 mods on it. Okay, what are those 3 things you are going to do to that machine to get it to ride the way that you want it to ride? And you only get 3 of them, so you got to be kind of selective here.
Go ahead.
What are you riding?
Ski-Doo.
You'd be on a Ski-Doo.
So I would put in a clutch kit, and I would put in a downloader.
Tuner.
Yep, tune the
Download's
engine.
an old term.
So the two, those
What
two complement each.
What tuner are you using?
So Ibexx does tuning on that. If somebody's looking at a Ski-Doo one, I challenge you to find anything better.
Okay.
It does, especially on the G4s. They found things that nobody else has ever got to. So that makes the 2 of them complement each other.
And you're talking about a
bunch.
Ski-Doo Turbo.
Ski-Doo turbo sled.
Yep.
And probably would put on a set of ice scratchers, even though Ski-Doo's ice scratchers are pretty good, but they just don't put much pressure down.
So you're going clutching first,
Clutching.
get the bad boy tuned up, and then ice scratchers.
Ice
I'm going to
scratcher.
go on a limb and say I don't know if anyone else is going to have ice scratchers in their 3. Okay. that's
You gotta keep
money right there.
Gotta save the rails, man.
Yep. Okay. So that's on the Ski-Doo. William, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I guess I'll have to go with Arctic Cat.
Okay, so we're running Arctic Cat.
So I would do.
Now, is this like a Sender chassis, or are we talking
Catalyst is
you guys,
coming out,
You guys
so
have
may as well go there.
a 6 Catalyst that
Yep.
you guys have been playing with.
Yeah, so let's count the Catalyst.
Okay, so we're on the Catalyst.
I would do clutching and a turbo kit right off the bat, which includes the tuning and everything,
Okay.
whole package, so that my 600 can perform.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do I like suspension, so I would spend money on shocks. Make it ride better.
Yep.
It helps handling and it helps ride. I got a bad back, so I like having it be cushy.
Yep.
And our eye scratchers don't fit on that Alpha, so otherwise I would go with the
eye scratchers as well.
So I'd probably do. Man, that sled's pretty flipping good out of the box.
Bags.
Yeah,
Bags.
Awesome bags on there.
Yeah.
Ski-Doo Link system is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Which the new Cat one I don't have any experience with yet. It could be pretty good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we've seen
we've seen a few, but
it's pretty legit.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
a lot better than the non-existent Ascender options.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so the only thing, well, we've got a Polaris left, and we have a Lynx, which you're gonna go Polaris.
Yeah, I mean, if I bought a Lynx, I'd probably just sell it and buy a Polaris. You know.
I have a Lynx. I like it.
So you're riding Polaris. What model?
Boost.
You're gonna go Boost. Okay.
Yeah, the reason that I do Boost, the reason that we're all basically turbos is the NAs are cool. They're fun. But even a Polaris Razor with a 2-liter motor at 225 horse, we put a turbo on it.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't beat turbos. They're fun.
Yeah.
So, I've got a Boost. I mean, the first 3 things that you've basically got to do to it to make it rideable is the intake vents.
The updates.
Yeah.
Let's start with the update.
Get your handlebar the hooks right. Get that.
Yeah, your recall's done.
Get your recalls done. Yep.
But I don't think those count as the one of the 3, right?
We won't count those.
All right.
Yeah. We also don't count a wrap. I noticed that wasn't one of your 3.
Well,
And
I
you guys,
read on
you guys
your
were
thing.
talking sticker power.
No, you read it.
Okay.
I
You
read your
it.
thing. It said no wrap.
Okay,
so.
good.
But if you do, go Deviant. I'm telling you right now.
The vents, because, that first year was an odd year, but I immediately saw that as soon as I talked to one of our dealers in Boise. They were like, constantly, holding like this. And the problem is it's a $23,000 sled. That's no fun. So that's the first thing I'd do would be my vents. And then the clutching. Our Boost clutching really stands out because the bottom end of the Boost is not quite as good as a lot of people like. So our clutching definitely wakes that up. The profile change that we do makes it so that it doesn't overload the motor with like conventional clutching does. And then I'd probably do a track.
Track. I've heard that one. That one's been one of the 3.
I'm pretty excited about the 325 track, but I did a Lynx track. A lot of people. I probably lost about. I think I lost 8 mile-an-hour track speed going to a Lynx track, but I gained probably 450 miles an hour of ground speed.
Wow.
It just, and part of it was
That gets
because
overlooked so much. At least in my opinion, the circles that I'm in, that gets overlooked a lot.
the first year, which it wasn't fair, because I talked to one of the ambassador guys, and he said the problem with the Lynx track is apparently it trenches, which I don't know. I don't see the whole trenching thing, but I had the 275 track when it came out, and we were riding obviously in 22. It was just a horrible season, so I didn't give it a fair chance. But still, I don't regret changing the track to the Lynx track. And I just talked to somebody from Chris Brandt's team, and he said the 325 is kind of right in between. It doesn't have the stiffness that the 3-inch Ski-Doo track does, but it doesn't have the softness that the 275 does. So he's like, I haven't put it on a Boost, but he's like, obviously watching Chris run, he's like, it's a phenomenal track. But Chris makes a lot of things look phenomenal. So but that's probably the 3 things I would do. Definitely clutching, obviously the intake vents, and then probably a track.
Okay.
If money's not an object on it.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. That was question 1, lightning round question 1. Question 2 is what's something that most everyone who is watching this probably doesn't know about you guys, whether it's Ibexx in general or you guys.
Man, how long is this going to take?
We had a good laugh because I was telling them, giving them some examples, and I said, Matt, Muskoka Freerider, told me no broken bones and a finger chopped off. And then all of a sudden, these guys whipped out their thumbs.
Yeah, so that's
And-
something that even,
and
we connect
there
a
you
lot.
go.
And
So-
this is not from birth.
Not from birth.
No.
Different accidents.
Different accidents, same,
Same accident, different time.
yes,
No.
same
Same industry.
Okay.
Agriculture.
agriculture. So they were farmers back when he was 4 years old. He was running his hand across the top of a sprocket and or at the top of the chain, and decided to grab it and see what happens. Well, the sprocket obviously went around like that, so it cut his right one off. And then in 2011, we were changing the axle on a combine, and that was on a grain cart, right? That you did it.
Yeah, it was a planter grain cart for filling up the grain planter.
Yep.
And we were changing the axle on a combine, and I was stuck my finger through a hole because the pin wouldn't go all the way through, and there's washer shims. And I told my grandpa, who unfortunately has passed away, but I said, lift it up just a little bit. He let it down.
And then there went the tip of your thumb.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, pretty fun. I came out of there in complete shock, like just looking at it.
Oh yeah, blood's probably just gushing.
It was just,
His tendons were sticking out. It was pretty wild looking.
Ooh.
it was good. It was good.
And you were, 2011, so you were junior in high school? Sophomore?
No, I was 20. I've been 22.
Okay.
I graduated in 09.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. You remember that one.
Yeah. He hasn't broken any bones. I have. I broke my collarbone and fractured my back. But
Yeah.
other than that,
So, okay, so besides sharing some of those things with Muskoka Freerider, anything, is there any other thing that would just shock us? Holy cow.
he's got his brain going. You can see his behind his eyes there. Something's turning.
I was a Ski-Doo dealer for 1 year. That's kind of what probably spurned a lot of this on. Mr. Performax was the name of the business. Started working on people's sleds, and then after we closed down the business, because that's an expensive proposition when you're a brand new dealer and you have to take on sleds that are 1, 2, 3 years old from the old stock.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty unfair advantage to start with, so that didn't last very long, but continued working on sleds after that.
And that's
1999,
1999.
98, 99.
Was this down in Aberdeen or American?
Aberdeen.
It was in.
It was in that one was in Aberdeen.
That one was in Aberdeen.
Yep.
And that was a 1 year and done.
One and done.
One and done right there.
Lesson number 1.
There you go. You got to get those out of the way sooner than later, right?
Yep.
Well, that's
So you can
our
get on.
problem. We decide we keep getting told 10 takes 10 businesses to succeed. One of them will succeed, so we started 10.
There you go.
Get all the first 9 done with.
Yep.
Get him out of the way.
Yep. Throw as many noodles on the wall,
Yeah.
and you hope one of those suckers stick.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So
Forgot to throw any glue on them though.
nice. Okay. Well, this is Ibexx. Appreciate you guys stopping in today. I know it's kind of a drive for you, but I learned a lot just about machining and clutching and how my snowmobile works. So I appreciate you guys kind of dumbing down some things and
Well, hopefully we can make it simple enough.
yeah,
and
make it.
confusing enough.
Yeah, that's the best way to go about it, is just make things simple, so everyone understands. But
Kiss.
keep it simple, stupid, baby. There we go.
That's the best way.
Yep. Anything else that you guys want to share with the snowmobile community out there? Ibexx on socials,
Yep.
Ibexx.com.
Yep. 2 X's.
2 X's.
IBEXX.com.
Yep.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and
We know Michael's not running those, so.
nope. Right. There's some there's a thing we do on TikTok that not very many people. It's called Gooner.
I've seen him.
It's getting more popular for sure.
Yeah, I've got to jog my memory here though, because wait, who is Gooner?
It started out as one of my employees
That's
being a jokester.
yeah.
Yeah. So he put it on my face.
So he put. I'm going with the archives right here. It's you
Yeah.
and okay. Now I'm gonna have to go back and watch those videos because you have come out. You done on Instagram too, not just TikTok, right?
No, yeah, we share them across
Across
most of
those
the social medias, yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard about Gooner yet,
And he comes out with all sorts of deals every once in a while too. So if you're not watching him, then
yeah,
he'll come out
get
with a
to
random
know
deal.
get to know Gooner.
Yeah, he's a goofball for sure. Sometimes a little embarrassing, not gonna lie.
But it's some guy Gooner. It's a Gooner guy.
Yeah, I love making people laugh, so
There we go.
that's what it's all about.
Okay. Well, thanks guys. Thanks for stopping in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. We really appreciate you
Yeah. Thanks.
inviting us in.
Yeah. This happened fast. So
Yeah.
we both have shows and stuff and businesses to run this fall, and it was like, all right, let's do it tomorrow, or it's not ain't gonna happen for a while.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Awesome.
you.